Warning: the following audio drama contains adult themes and scenes of intense violence. Listener discretion is advised. Previously.
Where am I?
The Convento del Santo Rosario. They found you and your companion stumbling into the village. Who knows from where? Your clothes were all covered with blood.
She's at a place that cloisters women. Felt like a religious institution. Thea didn't see how many, but they are following.
Look at those clouds. No moon or stars will be out tonight, I'm afraid.
We take horses and supplies from the village, then cross the river. We will burn them in the hottest fires of hell.
I regret to inform you, during your return here from Paris, our Holy Papa has died.
When has the conclave been scheduled?
The 29th.
In much the same way that the overhead clouds have obscured the sun's light, there is also a cloud that darkens our ability to look in and listen to this army gathered in the valley. It is rare because it requires one fundamental principle, someone who also knows far sight and far hearing, deliberately enacting a barrier through their own efforts.
Could they be seeing and hearing us right now?
Without us even knowing it.
Eye of the Beholders. Episode 4. A Dark Revelation. With the knowledge that their own compound may now be under remote surveillance, it was imperative to let all other members of the Muein Mystery School become aware of such danger. But it had to be done as surreptitiously as possible. In this context, Master Ephrat requested Golda join her in the Master Guide's chamber.
You wish to see me, Master?
Ephrat nestled close, then whispered into her ear, cupping with both hands. Golda nodded, then laughed. Moments later, Golda returned to her and Wimarc's chamber. She made sure not to appear too concerned, or that her steps were too hasty in getting there. It was impossible to know if a detached mind was watching. Once inside, she sat on her meditation cushion and closed her eyes. It took no effort for Wimarc to catch Golda's news about the temple. It was disturbing. Nevertheless, he remained steadfast that it wouldn't deter his small group's objective of rescuing Rachel.
It is a most serious condition indeed, but one that need not keep us from reaching Rachel successfully.
How do you know that, Father?
Because those whose camp we set afire did not see or hear us, nor have they been able to track us since we crossed the river.
Samantha reached across the chasm between him and her horse and took hold of his arm.
But what about them? And Mother?
Aaron circled, blocking Wimarc from going farther.
Master, your wisdom and expertise would be better suited to protecting our home.
Thea suddenly landed on Aaron's forearm.
We're only a mountain pass away from my mother, and she looks well enough to travel. I can get her.
He looked at Samantha, willing to grant her leave if she wished to join her father back home to the Alps.
A fresh look at the Western school may also tell us much about who they are and why they are attacking.
It was clear she was not going to let Aaron continue alone. He was relieved she would be staying.
You do an old man proud. But that pass through the Pyrenees, you're looking at 4 to 6 days.
With hills no higher than that of our home, 3 days, at best.
Wimarc knew they were right. They still had their snow gear packed and were more than capable of traversing the lesser challenges of the approaching mountain range in comparison to the heights of the Alps. Wimarc locked arms with his daughter, then touched his forehead to hers.
We will send our thoughts only to you.
My daughter.
He pulled away, then glanced at Aaron.
Tell your mother.
She knows.
Wimarc suddenly sat upright, regal, addressing them as honored Muein brethren.
Guardians.
Master.
Thea, you travel with him now. Be the eyes ahead of him to keep him from being found.
Wimarc spun the horse around and galloped away. Thea took off, leading the path back. Samantha and Aaron nestled up to each other, holding hands. Samantha leaned over and kissed him.
Now, let's go get your mother and see how we can help our people.
In Avignon, the election of the new pope was ready to begin. The College of Cardinals had gathered just outside the palace, near where the chamber of the cardinals was situated, the large inner sanctuary where the conclave would take place. 20 cardinals had collected, Pasquis among them. Cardinal de Boulogne would normally have been present during the conclave. However, with Pasquis there, he had other plans. Claiming a bout of sudden ill health, he was excused while 2 other cardinal bishops remained. Amazingly, his health seemed to return as soon as the chamber's doors were closed and locked. To which he then found himself moving rapidly through the palace corridors to end up finally at Pasquis' private apartment. He stealthily cracked the door and took step within. He looked through drawers, papers, then found Renier's gift box. He was aghast at what he witnessed inside. De Boulogne turned at the sound of the door to see Pasquis.
I shall use those fingers to pluck out your eyes.
You are in conclave. I locked you in personally. You cannot be here.
I told you, I am everywhere, and I control everything.
You cannot be God.
Pasquis glanced at the fingers inside the box, then slowly closed the lid.
Oh, yes. He favors me.
In a flash, he advanced on de Boulogne and grabbed the cardinal bishop's left ear. Pasquis closed his eyes to concentrate. De Boulogne trembled to his knees, eyes bulging in terror. Pasquis slowly went to the floor with him, keeping a firm grip on the ear.
And through me, all souls in Europe shall bow.
Pasquis let go, then kicked him. De Boulogne cradled his head from the attack.
I speak of this to no one. I beg you.
I know you won't, for his ways, and thus mine, are mysterious.
He nabbed de Bologna by the collar and hurled him against the wall, then opened the box and took out a particularly nasty finger with a long nail.
Now about those eyes.
No, I...
Paskey spied a puddle of urine pooling at the Cardinal Bishop's feet.
You piss like a dog.
Furious, he grabbed him by the collar and tossed him to the floor. Paskey grabbed him again and hurled him toward the door.
You despise me utterly.
I plead for your mercy. I beg.
Paskey opened the door, jockeyed de Bologna into position, then kicked him in the ass, splaying him onto his belly in the outer hall.
Flames will devour your soul, I promise you.
De Bologna clambered to his feet and sprinted away as fast as he could.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Meanwhile, the College of Cardinals sat around a gargantuan table casting their ballots for the next pope. The door was locked. Paskey could not have gotten out. And he hadn't. He was sitting there amongst all the others. A sudden gleam lit up his eyes as a peculiar thought crossed his mind. He hid a smirk. The air was thin and crisp, biting at the skin as the horse's hooves crunched over the frost-hardened earth, leading into the Pyrenees mountain pass. A light flurry of snow cascaded down upon Aaron and Samantha as they rode along the narrow path, winding through ancient pine trees whose branches were heavy with frost. For most people, this terrain would have been inhospitable. The mountains seemed to close in, their towering slopes and craggy outcrops casting long shadows over the trail, as though the peaks were silently watching, unyielding and timeless. Yet for the Muein Guardians, this was a familiar environment, and not the least bit frightening. They had resolved not to stop, but to wholly pass through. Renier strutted through knights and squires, still holding position at the camp below the Alps. He stopped beside Philip, who was looking at thick pelts.
Just as you had ordered, my lord.
Good. Break camp. I want them to think we've gone. I'll take the brigade.
Philip nodded, then hurried into the heart of the grounds.
Break it down! We're done here,
my lord.
Renier lifted a pelt and took a closer look, wondering if it would be enough to still against the cold of the mountain ascent. Then he knelt and placed his hand in the dirt. Within seconds of closing his eyes, he smiled, then pulled the chopped Muein finger from his sleeve and gazed reverently at it.
Who knew so much could be learned from a single finger?
The nunnery was surrounded by high stone walls made of local limestone. It was not at all imposing. It clearly represented a combination of austerity and security. The barrier was punctuated with small, narrow windows. Many were arched, Some contained fancy lattice work. When Aaron and Samantha rode in, they could see several small gardens and an orchard of fruit trees just outside the main building's back end. The convent's entrance was a heavy wooden door, set within a carved pediment that displayed symbolic vines and a large cross. When Aaron saw it, he felt all his muscles in his abdomen tighten. A chill rushed through him. The echoes of a tortured life now past still reverberated throughout his spirit. He clenched his teeth to steady the turmoil, then looked on with eyes afire.
You all right?
Aaron nodded, yet his body still screamed in defiance as they drew nearer. A couple of nuns noticed them, but reacted without concern. Samantha kept a wary eye on Aaron as they dismounted and tethered their horses. He acted as if she weren't beside him, striding to the small porter's lodge just inside the great wall. The lodge's walls were also made of stone, with virtually no decorations on them. A narrow, glassless window with iron bars allowed a small amount of natural light, falling upon a sparsely furnished space. A portress sat behind an unassuming table, ready to receive any visitors.
Greetings.
Peace be with you. How may I assist you in the service of God in this holy house?
We are here to retrieve my mother. She was brought in a few weeks ago.
Long hair, some gray, and...
Please, wait here in peace and prayer. I will inform the Reverend Mother.
Samantha took another look at Aaron, seeing how tense he was.
What bothers you so?
I do not care for. This religion tortured and killed me last time.
That was Elawan, not you. And it wasn't this place.
The whole hand hurts, even when one finger gets injured.
Only another minute passed, then the abbess strode in, followed by the portress.
Heaven be upon you both. You wish to claim the lady?
Yes, we are her children and...
She still needs much recovery. I would not recommend she leave right now.
We are very grateful for your services to our mother, but we can care for her much better at our home than what you could do here.
There is no greater care than the light of God, my child.
Indeed. Does not the light of God shine beyond even these walls?
Do you know how she arrived to us?
I'm sorry, but it is inappropriate to withhold a parent from seeing her children. Would you deny your Christ the communion with his?
The abbess stared coolly, unable to rebut, then hurried past him and out the front door. The portress stole a quick glance at Aaron, then retook her seat at the table and cast her gaze low. Samantha nabbed Aaron and spun him around so as to keep their words hushed.
Your tongue has turned into quite the sword.
Aaron glared at her.
I didn't say it was a bad thing.
They waited a few moments longer. Then the abbess returned, along with 3 nuns and Rachel in tow. Rachel hurried into Aaron and Samantha's arms.
Mother.
Blessed be your light that you're safe.
All the nuns looked a bit surprised at the nature of Samantha's comment.
You are well to travel?
And ready.
Samantha and Rachel turned toward the abbess and her entourage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron and Samantha cradled Rachel as they walked her outside. The nuns watched, somewhat stupefied, waiting for some kind of payment for their services.
Ungrateful youth.
Aaron and Samantha escorted Rachel toward the horses.
Still nothing about Matthew.
There hasn't been a blending with anyone.
She gave them a frustrated look. The inability to make a link with any brethren that could still be at the Western school was not normal.
We know.
We can tell you on the way.
I am afraid we must return to the school.
He helped Rachel onto the horse, then looked back to see the abbess and nuns had stepped out of the porter's lodge, watching them.
Are you ready for this?
Yes. I think I can guide you back.
Aaron took to the saddle. Rachel held tightly to him. Then, with Samantha beside, slowly rotated the horses around. Aaron looked intently at the convent as he twirled. Rachel could feel the sudden tensing of his muscles. She knew his inner self was reacting to what had happened with Eloine those many years ago.
It is all right. You are all right.
Aaron pushed the horse to trot out of the complex a bit faster. Within a few hours, they were at the rocky outcrops of the Muein Western School overlooking the Atlantic seaboard. Rachel led them through a gorge of boulders, small shrub trees, and then into a secluded cavern. When they dismounted, Aaron and Samantha were stunned. All around them laid pools of dried blood, along with carcasses of massacred horses.
Everything was slaughtered.
They found torch nubs. Rachel struck a rock near a pool of thick, dark goo. Its spark ignited the puddle. They then lit the torches, and Rachel led them into a tunnel. They encountered murdered Muein monks while en route. Also, a few of the knights who had attacked them.
They discovered our hidden entrances. Who knows how long they had been observing us and able to keep themselves from our awareness.
Wait.
She knelt to see the bloody stump left on the monk's right hand by the result of the finger being chopped away.
Look. Perhaps they took it as a token of their butchery.
She hurried past, not wanting to look at it. The tunnel opened into a grand gallery, deep underground, with a high vaulted ceiling. Bodies laid everywhere. Clearly, a huge part of the battle took place here. Most of the deceased were Muein brethren. Some had been burned. It was only by the shape of their corpses that the charred remains could be identified as a body. Rachel, Aaron, and Samantha covered their noses from the stench. A tear marked Rachel's cheek, but she remained strong, stoic. Aaron put a comforting hand on her shoulder.
Mother.
Rachel nodded appreciatively, then pulled away.
I have to find Matthew.
She hurried into another tunnel. Back at the temple in the Alps, all around the complex, various monks sat in deep meditation. In the sanctuary of the Master Guardians, Ordonio nestled close with Master Ephrat.
Our own barrier is now in place. You may speak freely.
Reports from the Avis scouts say the bulk of the army is now moving west, having already left the forest and marching on open roadway. However, they still spy a small contingent hiding behind in the shadows and may have already begun ascending.
They want us to think they have left.
A small band we can easily disarm, which makes me believe they're here for something particular.
Rachel had led Aaron and Samantha into a small underground chamber, what would have been an inner sanctuary classroom. The walls were charred. The bodies of children were everywhere, some within the protective arms of the fallen adults. Rachel wept over one of them. Aaron and Samantha knelt with her.
Matthew.
Indeed, the corpse of the Muein master was holding a deceased child to his chest. Even one of his fingers had been taken.
Many of the children must have run here to get away. This was one of their classrooms.
Look how he holds the child.
Samantha gently unwrapped Matthew's arms and examined the youth. Something about this seemed unusual and disturbing. She immediately went about examining the other children. They all appeared to be within feet of the adults, not scattered as if running.
What do you see?
The attackers didn't kill these children. They did.
It was a stunning revelation. The Muein adults had taken the lives of all the children. Rachel and Aaron suddenly examined the youths. Their minds, their spirits, simply couldn't process the depth of this tragedy. Why? Why were the children murdered? Aaron stopped at the body of a female guardian, lying sprawled in her own blood, a dagger still in her hand.
This magistrum took her own life here. She's still holding the blade.
They all looked quizzically at each other. Again, why? A sinister thought suddenly occurred to Aaron.
Can you show us to the library?
Rachel nodded. She hesitated, taking one last look at Matthew, then escorted them from the room. She led them through a tunnel. Along the way, they found several more burned monks. The walls were also covered with soot.
This way.
Within minutes, they stood before what would have been the heavy, colossal door of the library. It had been rendered into splintered debris from an intruding battering ram. The devastating device still sat just inside the mangled opening, with charred Muein bodies all around the greater interior. The whole of the library pod was blackened from soot and smoke. Very little remained of the books and manuscripts chained to the ruined shelves, consumed by the former blaze. Samantha examined the battering ram while Aaron and Rachel gawked at the devastation and massacred bodies. Aaron fingered the chains of the books consumed by the flames, then noticed the torches were in the deceased monk's hands.
These remains are of guardians who came here to burn the books.
Yes, I recognize this one. He was the newly consecrated guardian of the knowledge.
She looked at Aaron, knowing that the corpse would have been him if he had joined her and Matthew earlier. Meanwhile, Samantha looked over one of the burned corpses.
It's like this one walked right into the fire himself.
He did. They all did. Everyone did what they had to do to protect the knowledge.
They suddenly realized the protection of such knowledge is what drove them to also killing the youth.
These attackers came for what we know, not for who we are.
And they are heading for our home.
Wimarc bounded across the hillside on his horse, guided by Thea. Back at the Master Guide sanctuary in the Alps, the The 7 masters stood huddled over a small table with a map.
Even though it has been generations since these tunnels have been used, they will at least deliver us on the banks of the eastern slopes, where we know no band of mercenaries or armies await to capture us.
The master guard approached and whispered into her ear.
Please excuse me.
She allowed the guard to lead her to the threshold, where Golda stood waiting.
Spirit Magistrum, Lako here says you have received words.
Moments later, the 7 masters had grown more tense. The information Golda had relayed was a telepathic communication she had received from Samantha about the revelations from the Western School, about how the aggressors were looking to steal the Muein's arcane knowledge, to learn their skills, but to what end? Regardless, it was paramount to keep such knowledge secret from those who weren't mature, who weren't really ready, even if it meant burning it.
It would be a tragedy of unimaginable proportion. The texts must be preserved.
If erased by flame, does that not put our northern, southern schools at greater risk? They could be attacked next.
They might still be, whether our library be secreted or not.
There is no doubt knowledge from the Western School is no longer available to us now because it has been consumed by fire. How great a wisdom lost, we cannot know. Nor can we ascertain how long it would take to relearn such knowledge, though it exists in its entirety all around us.
100 years? 1,000?
Worth it if kept from minds not properly seated to receive it.
Let us take the master copies of our texts, so that they may be preserved, and burn the rest. What is lost then will not be so great. May it also confuse our attackers into believing we have destroyed our knowledge, as was done by our brethren in the West.
The group hesitated, considering the proposal. Then all nodded in agreement.
We will post guardians and protators to give cover for the evacuation.
More of us than them. We could stay and disarm them.
How many others have they told of our location? Sadly, it is time to abandon the Alpine temples.
Next time.
Don't let them touch you! They're devilry!
Mother?
I must stay. I have lost every man I have ever loved. I shall not lose you too.
How did they find us?
This knowledge cannot be fully understood without the proper foundations. It will do you no good.
At even this very moment, your kind makes prayer to your heathen devils.
Grace of life begets more life. Yet here you are, hoping to end ours. A burned forest always returns.
Only if God wills it.